Hello, welcome to another episode of a Melanated Hypothesis podcast with your girl, ToriV, aka Victoria Littlejohn. And it's Friday, so you know what that means. We have another dope guest with a dope perspective. So, I'm so happy you're joining us. Introduce yourself to the collective.
Thank you for having me. My name is Sean, but on Instagram it's CEO Sean. It's definitely I'm definitely glad to be on this podcast. Thank you for having me.
Yes, no problem. Oh my goodness. Okay, so tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Okay, great. My name is Sean. I am a 19-year-old entrepreneur and options trader in the stock market. So options trading is just a way you can basically trade securities in the stock market, and securities just being a specific thing. But yeah, that's what I mainly do full time right now. And I'm also a digital entrepreneur where I teach people how to start trading. My youngest student is 15 years old. I want to teach young adults and teenagers how they can also leverage, the stock market, leverage options, leverage entrepreneurship in general to fund their lifestyle.
I love it. Your course is out, right?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So how was it? First, how did you get into options?
Yeah. So that was about actually a year ago, about a year and 2 months ago, actually, on Christmas. I told my parents to not get me anything for Christmas, no games, no fun things, like no toys, none of that stuff. I just wanted a course on whether it's options, whether it's the stock market, whether it's entrepreneurship in general, something along the lines of a course. And they was like, okay, well, I guess we could do that. That's a little weird, but we got you. So they got me a course on how to invest in the stock market, basically. And it the course basically taught me how to break down companies and how to understand, their actual value. So like if a company's like at a specific price, but it might be doing something bad in the company, I'll be able to identify that and put it together to basically say, okay, is this a good time to buy, or is it a good time to sell, basically, or is it a good time to wait on the stock? But I went through that course in about a day, and then 3 days later, I after that, so it took about 4 days where I'm just studying constantly. Like even on Christmas, I was studying. So after like I hang out with the family, I went through the course on Christmas Day until like 3 o'clock in the morning, and then when I woke up, I just went on YouTube to look at different videos and stuff like that and study and understand how the stock market works. And then 4 days after Christmas, I placed my first trade for $500, and I turned it to 2,000 in about 2 weeks. So that's how I got started with options.
That is dope. I remember you were telling me you were in school.
Yeah, I was in
And
school. Yeah, it was literally in class. Like I literally had school here on my iPad and my trading broker on my computer, and I literally had $2,041 up on my screen, and then I had my Zoom class next to me, and I'm like, this don't make any sense. Why am I in class right now? And I just made this much like without leaving or without a job or without doing anything crazy. I just learned a new skill set basically. So that's when I just went all in with it.
so what was the next step? Like after you made that 2000, what did you do then?
Oh, I just doubled down on options. I just studied like constantly. I was like, all right, I need to learn this skill set to the T. So I just started studying, going on YouTube, looking up different mentors and stuff like that also trade options. And I just started finding people who also trade and studying under them. So I had about like 5 mentors who were doing like 100K a day trading options. So I just started learning that for what they did. So they trade they have different strategies that they use to trade with, but they also have different outlooks on the market. So I was like, okay, let me just gather all this information and make my own thought process on the market, basically. And when I did, it was so amazing. It took about a year of me like really learning this stuff, and then I just started consistently like trading and stuff like that throughout that year. So when I was in school, I think I made about up to like 4,000, and then I lost 1,000, like because I on one trade in like a day. I was like, dang, I lost 1,000, and I felt good actually. I was like, dang, I just lost 1,000. That's good because the fact that I can make 4,000, and even though I lost 1,000, I was like, yo, I can actually make. So that means I can make more than that. I already have the skill set in place. I just got to learn how to mitigate my losses, how to not cut back on losses and increase my wins. So I was like, okay, I like this though. I can. This is something I can deal with. because I'm not doing this at a job. Basically, I'm literally at home, just sitting on my computer, doing this for like an hour or two a day, and then making this much. So I'm like, okay, I want to double down on this. So after that, I just spent months on end just studying, practicing, and just building my craft while everybody else was having fun, partying, and going to parties and stuff like that, graduation and stuff like that. I was literally just studying options and learning how I can get better at it, and also how to teach people how to do it too. Because if I can't teach somebody else how to do it, I don't know enough. If I can't teach it to somebody else properly, I don't know enough. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna learn enough, and then I'm going to teach this to other people and see if I can teach this to some of my friends who are also 18, 19, 20 years old. And I was like, all right, let's get into it. And from there, that's when I became a teacher. Like once I actually moved to Atlanta in July.
Mm. You're from up here, from Maryland originally, right?
Yes, I'm from Maryland. Yes.
So how did you find it, you say you were teaching your friends? Like we're talking about options, like trading. This is
Yeah.
not typical. So how were your friends how did they receive that when you said, I got
Um.
this move?
And okay, so when I say friends, I mean friends that had the right mindset. So the friends that I had from before in high school, they were like, "What are you doing?" Like, I don't really. They were like, "Oh, that's cool, whatever." But they didn't really understand it, so they just kind of just shook it off, like, "Okay, whatever." But the people that were the people that I met in Atlanta, like I started making friends in Atlanta. Like I started meeting
Mm,
friends and on social media and stuff like that, and I started talking to them, and I could really tell that they had the right mindset because of the way that they talked, because of the way that they said certain things, and the way that their outlook was. So I was like, yo, these are my actual friends now, like because I like them. They actually resonate with me in so many different ways. And then when we got to Atlanta, they just happened to be there. So then we just started connecting, linking up, and then doing work from there. And then from there, I taught them, and they started making money with it. And then from there, I just started posting what they're doing and what I'm doing. And ironically, the friends from my old school were following me and liking my pictures and stuff like that. I wasn't even following them, by the way. So I actually made a whole new account away from everybody that I had in my past, so that way I can have a fresh new start. And everybody that I'm following is an entrepreneur in some way, shape, or form. And
mm.
now they're following my new page, and they're like going through me, and they're like, yo, how are you doing all this stuff? And I'm like, I was doing that before when we was in school. And now they like, oh, and they're actually buying my course now to actually learn how to do it, when I was willing to teach everybody back then for free. But now they're willing to pay for it. And I'm like, hey, you're too late to the curve. So, I mean, get it while you can. And now they're actually buying it, and they're trying to learn it too. And some of my friends that I was literally in class with, now they're trading options too. And they're like, yo, this is really good. This is a new stream of income for me outside of my job, outside of, getting money from other places. And I'm like, it's that easy for real. Once you get the hang of it, and once you get the right mindset to trade, it's really good. Because I literally have a 15-year-old learning how to do it. So all the adults that's watching this, I mean, you can't say like, oh, I'm too old to do it. Or you have more wisdom and more like experience to actually learn the stuff than a 15-year-old does. He barely knows how to do like, I think, wait, 15 years old, he don't even know how to do geometry or calculus and all that stuff yet, but he's still making money in the market. Like, you don't have to be like a genius to do this stuff. Like, that's what I wanted to really drive home.
Right. So what if we're talking about trading, and I told you before, I've been learning, but then I don't know what I'm doing, so I stop. And so, but what would somebody just come in the game? They don't know. They just heard you say that this is something I can do. Um, what kind of money do I need to start with that?
Mm. So I recommend starting with like maybe 500 to 1,000. Usually, only reason I say that is because it's still like relatively, and most people, that for some people it might be like, yeah, that's a lot. But then again, you also have to think about, you're taking a certain amount of money and you're making like, for example, let's say you have a job and you get paid $10 an hour or something like that. You have to work, let's say you work 8 hours a day, so 9 to 5. You work 8 hours a day. That's $80, not even including taxes and money that they take out of there. So you might be taking home maybe like $60 for 8 hours of work. So if you put in, like, let's say you put in $600 and you make 10% of that in a day, that's $60. That's $60 more extra that you didn't have to make, going to work. And you only have to work for like an hour or two, and then you make $60. So even though that seems like a little bit, you still have to put into the perspective of how much you're making now and how much you can make extra. Because I actually had to calculate it. If you trade like $100, there's like 252 trading days in a year. So if you make $100 a day times 252 is $25,000 a year extra on top of what else you're doing. And then if you make $500 a year, that's like, I forgot, that's like about 125,000 a year. And if you make like $1,000 a day, that's $252,000 a year. Like that stuff just compounds a little bit after little bit. It'll just keep growing. And that's another thing you have to remember too. If you're not pulling out of your account and you're actually growing it like consistently by even if it's a small percentage, you'll literally grow and exponentially like grow the amount of money that you actually have with a whole new skill set. But you don't have to do anything extra. It's just like an hour or two a day, or even 3 hours a day, and you literally can generate that much money.
So are you compounding when you're trading?
Unfortunately, yeah, it's yes and no. So because it's mainly the main thing that I use for income. Sometimes pull out money, to pay for certain things or get certain things. And I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm trying to find new income streams so that way they can fund like what I'm doing, like my lifestyle, and that I can compound my trading account. Because right now I had to take out my tax. My taxes was crazy this year, so I had to like, all right, let me set this stuff aside. And then when I realized how much I had to pay, I'm like, yo, that sucks, because I wasn't really setting it aside when I was like taking out money to go pay for stuff. So I was like, dang, now I got to take out this much. So now I'm like, all right, cool. I'm just going to restart, refresh, and also make sure you get a CPA. Once you start making money, like get a CPA. So like I recommend when you get to maybe like 5 figures, then get a CPA. But if you're in 4 figures, you should be fine. It's not that big of a deal. But when you're in like 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures, definitely get a CPA, because the IRS will be knocking at your door like, where's our money at? Because I know you've been making bread. So yeah, that was struggle that I'm going through now. But now I'm trying to compound it actually and not take anything out of it like at all. And actually, I'm actually running a play where I'm actually gonna. I haven't told anybody this yet, but all right, I'm gonna tell you. So the play that I'm about to do is basically I'm gonna leverage my business credit. I'm gonna liquidate. So I have about 50,000 that I'm gonna use. I'm gonna liquidate that and put that on my trading account, and then try to grow that by small percent. Like remember I said 10%. I usually go for 10% a day. So if I put 50,000 in there, I'll try to go for 10% a day, which is 5,000. But if I end up making 20%, then that's $10,000 in a day, and I could just do that every single day that week. So it's like Monday through Friday, I could do 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. That's literally 50,000 right there. And then on top of that, I could just put that 50,000 that I leveraged to put it back on my business credit, and I keep the reward points too from spending that. So now I got 50,000 on my account for free, and I got reward points that I just paid myself, and then that literally funds my account. But the only reason I'm doing that is because I trust myself, and I actually have a strategy that I've been doing for a while and that I've mastered. Do not do this off the rip. Like, do not just like, all right, cool, I'm about to leverage my credit, put all this on here and go crazy. You still have to like practice and get the hang of trading first before you actually do something like that. But I still recommend, if you can make a little, if you can turn a little bit into a lot, then that's when you can start doing that. But if you can't, then just keep practicing, go back to the drawing board, and then keep trying to build that.
That's dope. I think that's so dope. So how do you, when you start trading and you're researching companies, what does that process look like for you?
So for me, that basically just looks like, so there's multiple different websites you can go on. There's I'm just gonna name a few. Market Watch, you got Yahoo Finance, you can go on Benzinga, Bloomberg Business. There's so many different things where you can do research on articles, or like different different sites where you can basically check the information of different stocks and what they're doing and how they're performing. But I typically go on like Yahoo Finance or maybe Market Watch, and I'll just look up a company and I'll see what the news is on that company. So if they have good news, I'm like, all right, cool, I'll factor that into my trading. If it's bad news, I'll factor that in. So I just try to make sure I understand what's going on. So if something bad does happen, I know that information. So now I can prepare for my trading day with that information, and also on top of my pre-market routine, which is where I basically, before the market opens, pre-market, I have a routine of checking my stocks and making a watch list of like stocks that I'm going to be watching, during the day. And then I just organize all that stuff during about 8 o'clock in the morning until 9:30 in the morning, when the market actually opens. So that way I'm ready and prepared.
You do that every morning?
Every morning. Well, Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday, I'm chilling, but that's pretty because the market's not open. But Monday through Friday, yeah, I'm doing that.
So how do you, like, if I'm researching and I look up the company, um, I see it has good news. What would turn me off? What type of things turn you off to a company?
So in terms of a trading aspect, if something turns me off, it's probably like maybe if they had an earnings report and it was a really bad one, or like what happened with Facebook actually recently dropped like 25% of its value, and it lost like $400 billion in like a day. It was crazy. Like in 10 minutes I watched it too. I'm like, yo, that's crazy. I wish I had played that. But it dropped like tremendously, and that was because it was partially because Apple basically restricted Facebook from basically looking at like people that have iPhones. It's very hard to track some of their information because Apple basically doesn't allow Facebook to track that stuff, because Facebook is mainly heavily funded by running ads and stuff, like running
Mm-hmm.
ads, people, Facebook ads and stuff like that. So they make a lot of money from that. So, but if they're not allowed to target a lot of people, that means that people aren't making a lot of money from Facebook ads. So that way they're not really with them that much. So now they're going to start going to TikTok, or they're going to start going to different places like Google SEO to try to get their marketing up, because Facebook is they're playing with them a little bit, right? So Facebook took a huge hit on that because they lost a lot of revenue from that, and then they lost a lot of value in their company because they was handicapped because of Apple. So that took a huge dip on their company, and then it dropped 25% in a day, which is like very foreign. Like it usually never happens like that, especially for Facebook because it's a huge company. But that's a
So do
bad.
you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying that's an example of like what would turn me off to a company. If, like, for example, if I'm bullish on Facebook and I see something like that, I'm like, ah, nah, I'm probably gonna get in the puts, or the market's probably gonna go down. So that's my outlook.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Do you make money going down too? Is that
Oh,
part
of
of your
course,
strategy?
of course. Like when the market goes up, I'm like, cool. It's something called. So there's two things. It's called calls and puts. So a call is basically like when you're about to call somebody, your phone has to go up. So calls are up, and then puts is when you put your phone down. So puts is down.
I
So
like it.
calls is basically betting on the stock going up, and then puts is betting on the stock going down. So if the market is going up, I'm like, all right, cool, I can get into calls. If the market's coming down, I'll get into puts. So that's basically how that works.
Mm. So how do you? I know we talked a little bit about this before.
Yeah.
But when you, I lost my question. Okay, so basically, if I'm trading, if I've done my research, I know what kind of companies I want to start with. What, where do I trade?
Oh yeah, you can. There's so many different brokers you can use. You can use one that I recommend for to trade. Okay, so to trade, the simplest platform that I know is Robinhood, but I don't recommend it for trading only because it's not as reliable of a platform, and it's also it's super simple and easy to use. But that's also like a bad thing too, because it doesn't have certain things that you can use. I recommend Webull, E-Trade, and or Thinkorswim, which is TD Ameritrade power platform. Basically, if you look it up, you'll be able to see it. But those are the three platforms that I recommend because they allow you to chart, they allow you to buy contracts properly and stuff like that, and they're a little bit difficult they're not difficult, they're a little bit to the naked eye, it's like, yo, this looks so complicated, I don't understand. But in reality, all you have to do is like watch one video and it'll basically break down like what is everything that you're seeing basically. And then once you do that, it's like, oh, okay, this isn't too scary. Because I thought the same thing. I'm like, I'm 18. I'm like, yo, what is all these lines and stuff? This is ridiculous. I don't want to do this no more. And then I just looked up a video on how to use that platform. Like, because I use Thinkorswim, and I looked up how to use Thinkorswim or how to set up Thinkorswim tutorial, and it literally just watched videos like for an hour or two on how to use Thinkorswim, and it literally taught me everything. I'm like, okay, so that means that. Okay, that means that. Okay, so that wasn't that bad. I was over exaggerating because it was foreign to me, but I just looked up a video and someone taught me how to do it. So that was pretty much it.
So, okay. So, what would you say, or if did you have any hesitation coming in, like coming into options and you learning? There's a learning curve. Was anything kind of risky to you in the beginning that you were hesitant on?
Um, and because of my age, first, well, that's another thing too. I don't really hesitate to take an opportunity. I just, because it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like, yo, I might as well just do it now. I have to do it now. So, and for me also, that's another thing too. Like, since I'm younger, I can take as much risk as possible and still come home and I'll be fine. So I'm like, all right, I might as well go crazy now rather than do it as an adult. So if you are young, if you're around my age, 19, 18, 17, even if you're in college or something like that, try to take some risk. The worst thing that can happen is you go back to your college dorm or you go back with your parents while you're still young. And even still, like, you really got to take risks while you're younger. So for me, I was like, risk? Yes. Yes, please. I need that risk. Like, please give it to me. But, so yeah, when I got into options, I knew it was going to be risky, but I was like, that's good because risk is reward. Risk doesn't have, without risk, there's no reward, basically. That's how I looked at it. So I was like, there's a huge reward at this, but there's also a huge risk. So I like these odds, and all I got to do is just study and dedicate myself to understanding the craft, and then from there, I mean, I'll just be able to take off astronomically.
How do you keep yourself disciplined with, you're making money, you're making it on your own? How do you stay disciplined and be able to kind of put that money back into the business when you're making it? Essentially, you don't have to go anywhere. You can make it right now if you want to.
Yeah. So so when it comes to discipline, and most people like they might struggle with discipline when it comes to trading because when it comes to trading, you're probably going to, because it's attached to money, you might be emotional. So that emotional thinking is what leads to you lacking discipline. So the way I structure my strategy, because I teach this in my course too. I teach you my entire strategy. Like, what do I do? And the way I lay it out, because I'm a very systematic person, but I'm also very particular. Like, I'm very I'm like a step one, step two, step three, step 1.1, step 1.2 type of person. Like, that's just me because I want everything to be broken down in detail as possible, so that way there's no reason for me not to misinterpret it. So the way my strategy is basically it shows you how to trade, but it also tells you when and when not to. So it basically says, so for example, if I'll give you an example of like to describe it. So if you see a certain pattern in the market, it's like, all right, cool. Did this pattern show? You can just answer yes or no. No, it didn't show. Okay, so don't get in the trade. Or if this pattern did show, yes. Okay, did this happen? Yes. Did this happen? Yes. Now enter. So it's like you're all you got to do is answer yes or no questions about like did something happen or did something not happen, basically, just to make sure you enter a trade. So like I'll give you an example. Basically, um let's say a super basic example. Let's say your parents are like, are you supposed to take the trash out today? Basically. And you're like, I'm not sure. And then they start asking you questions like, all right, when does the trash come? Tuesday. Okay, what day is it now? Tuesday. All right, so are you supposed to take the trash out? Yes. Okay, take the trash out. So it's more like just a systematic system of questions that basically ask you yes and no questions, and then you just execute off of that. So it's not like, oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to take the trash out. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Just ask yourself simple questions like, what is today? When is it supposed to be done? Am I supposed to do it? And then if those are all yes, then execute. So that's why my course makes it super simple to break it down, because also remember I have to teach like 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds how to do it. So I have to make it super simple. Like it has to be because I want to teach everybody my age, like I said, middle school and in high school, how to do it, so that way they can do it while they're in school. So that way they don't have to be listening to Miss Francis or somebody like that, and then they can still make $1,000 in a day while they're still in class. You know, but I have to make it simple for them. So that's why I made my strategy like that.
Yes, where were you at? Where I was in school, okay? Because I definitely could have been in there doing two things over here and over here. What? Okay, so talk to me about risk management.
Ooh, oh, I love that. See, thank you. You're the first person to ask me that too. So when it comes to risk management, I am a stickler for it because I don't know about you, but I don't really like losing money, right? So, and I'm comfortable with it because that's a part of the game. So you're gonna lose, but you can also dictate how much you lose because, like, it's almost like you're guaranteed to lose in some way, shape, or form, but you still want to make sure that you set yourself up so that way you don't lose a big amount. So, like for example, if you're guaranteed to lose, let's say you're not guaranteed, but let's say the odds are you win 3 trades and you lose 2. Make sure that you're winning. Let's say, for example, 500 on the first 3 trades and only losing 100 on the 2 losses. So lose a little bit, make a lot. So like that's my thing. So when it comes to risk management, my strategy also entails this too. I have a risk to reward ratio of 1 to 2 or 1 to 3. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say I get in with 100. Let's say I get in with $1,000 on a trade, and I risk 10%. So that's $100. My risk to reward is 1 to 3, which translates to 10 to 30. Just adding a zero, and then that would be 10%. Risk 10% to make 30%. So if I put in $1,000, I'll risk 10%, which is $100, to make 30%, which is 300. So that way, I'm only risking small and making bigger. So if I lose, even if I lose 2 trades and I win 1 trade, I'm profitable. So that way, even if I lose $100 and then lose $100 and I win, I won 100. I won $300 and I lost 100, 100. So profitable. So you have to make sure you structure. Like I feel like that's one of the biggest things we overlook because the reason I lost $1,000 is because in a day is when I first started is because I didn't have risk management. I wasn't properly managing my risk properly, and I didn't know what a stop loss was. A stop loss is basically like think of it like when think of it you like drop it. Let's say you drop a ball from like a certain height and you drop it and then it'll hit the floor or something like that. But let's say you put a table between the floor and the ball. If you drop the ball now, it's going to bounce and stop at that table. So think of a table or that level or that specific line where if the price comes there, if price comes here, you're getting out of the trade basically. So and it does it automatically for you. So you don't have to like, oh, I need to make sure I get out the trade. Nope, the stop loss will get out for you at a specific price. So let's say, like I said, with my risk to reward, let's say I want to make sure that I risk 1 to 3. So I want to risk, let's say 10% to make 30%. I'll put a 10% stop loss and let's say a 30% take profit. So a 30% take profit is basically like a line where it basically says, okay, at this price, I want to take my money out or I want to make sure I get my money out. And the stop loss is basically saying, if this happens, then I'm out. I'm done. Like I'm getting my money out there, get it back to me. I'm done. So that's basically how I do risk management now. But when it comes to managing your risk, make sure you're just risking a little bit to make a lot. So if you get in a trade with $500, let's try to risk $50 to make $150 or to make $100. Just make sure you're risking a little bit to make a lot. That's my rule for risk management.
Okay, so um, so for example, let's say I have $500 and I want to get into a trade.
Yeah.
I will my if my full account is $500, I'm only risking 10% of that
Mm.
and to get into the trade.
So if you say you put a $500 in the trade.
No, I'm saying okay. Say I have an account and I put $500 in my Thinkorswim account.
Yeah.
Um, so my risk management would be taking 10% of that $500.
No. I mean, like, so And when I say risk, and that's another thing, risk is basically how much you are using. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have, so let's use your example. If you have $500 in your account, boom. Let's say on a trade, you risk, let's say $100. So you don't risk $100. You take $100 of that 500 and you put it in a trade. If you have
Mm-hmm.
a risk to reward ratio of 10 to 1 to 3, you'll be risking 10% to make 30%. So you'll risk $10 to make 30 if you put $100 into a trade for that example. But so like you take 100, so you have $500 in your account. You take a small portion of that or a little bit of that, and you take that and you put that into a trade. So you buy an options contract with it, and your risk is only how much you're losing. It's not how much you put into the trade. It's about how much you can lose on that trade. So if I put $100 in there and I'm risking 10% of that, I'm risking $10. But if I put $500 into a trade, and I have a 10% stop loss, my risk is $50 because it's 10% of whatever I put into that trade. So if I have a $10,000 account and I use 5,000 on a trade, then and I'm risking 10%, that means I'm risking $500 on that trade because I'm risking 10% of whatever I put into that actual options contract.
Okay. Yes, look, I hear a lot about it, and we know about the stop loss.
Yeah.
I know for sure that people always talk about that being important. Um, and just risk management in general, having a plan that you know how you're trading, how much you're risking in general each day, um, how much you're trying to compound, like knowing these little things are important. When you're putting in your stop loss, are you doing okay? So when you're doing options, I know earlier you said you made your first 2,000 in 2 weeks. Are
Yeah.
you doing long options trades, or are you day trading, or is it kind of both?
So when I started out, I was doing swing trading because I really wanted to, because all I really knew how to do was understand a company's value and what it could be long term. So that's what I knew. So I went off of that. So I started with swing trading, and then I started to slowly transition to day trading with the money that I had, the 2,000 that I had, and I just started day trading with that. So I could have did either or, but I was like, let me just try swing trading and see how that works, since that's what I know predominantly. But right now, I'm pretty much only day trading, but I do have swing. I do have a swing trade though. Right now, actually, I'm holding two. I bought two contracts of SPY, which is basically the SP 500 ETF, which
Mm,
is it's basically the top 500 companies in the U.S. basically on one single basket basically. So like
mm,
think of like an Easter egg thing where you have a basket and you have each egg inside the basket. So think of each egg like the stock, and then think of the basket as like what the ETF is. So SPY in that example. So I basically bought two contracts of that for 3,500, and I'm holding those until May. And it's basically 450. They're 450 calls, which basically means like I predict that the price is going to be higher than 450 by the time my contracts expire in May 20th of 2022. So that's basically it. I'm holding it till that long, and I basically say, okay, I think it's going to be above this price. So if it's above that price, I make money by that time.
mm. So do you have a stop loss in place for that when
Yes, that stop loss is a little bit different because I know that the price is going to keep moving a little bit. So for that I have I believe I have I think a 30 to 40% stop loss on that. And the only reason it's bigger is because, again, I still have the risk to reward. So my potential reward on that trade is high. It's about, I think it's like 1,000%, I believe, on that trade. If it actually goes up to the price, if it goes up to the all-time high that it was at before, and it goes up a little bit higher than that, then my take profit on that will be around that much. But I'm okay with risking a little bit more than that, only because I know prices fluctuate a little bit. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'll give it a little bit more room to breathe. So 30-40% around that amount. So if it drops to 50%, I'll be out of the trade basically, which is fine. And I'm fine with that because that's how much I'm willing to risk. So, but if it goes up that much, then I'm just going to hold it until it gets to a price that I'm comfortable with.
oh my goodness, that's so dope. Okay, so I gotta get into your course a little bit.
Okay.
Um, you were building it. The last time I seen you, you were building it, and it's officially out. How first, how can my audience get in contact with you to get it? But then also, what type of um, like, what are your principles for your course? Like, what are you teaching that we need to know that we can't, like, some people are like, oh, I can just go on YouTube and
Mm.
sit for 8 hours and find 100 videos or something. What, why should we come to your course instead of YouTube?
Of course. So you can find it. It's actually on my page at CEO of Sean on Instagram. Like you can click the link in my bio, or you can go to genzenterprises.com, GENZENTERPRISES.com, and you can find it there. But the reason I say that you can get mine over something like going on YouTube and stuff like that, one, first off, I make it so much simpler because, again, you have to remember, I spent like literally a year and a half literally just studying options only. Like I'm still studying it now, and like I'm still learning and building on top of it. And I'm actually going to update the course as well with new information that I learned. But I literally have a playlist of like 850 videos of just straight options trading, which is at least 10 minutes to 2 hours long for each video. Like I went crazy during that time because I was literally just camping. Like I was literally introverted for that entire time, just studying this stuff. And I noticed that first off, some things were repetitive and some things just made more sense. So I just started breaking that stuff down for myself, and then I broke it down to something as simple as possible. I feel like the one thing that, and I've also bought in a lot of courses. I've also spent 22,000 this year on just mentorships and courses, learning this stuff, and also mentorships. But from all of my mentors that I have, like I have 5 mentors right now, and all of them have different strategies and all of them have different approaches to the market, but there's still like a varying degree of who's successful and who's not. So I wanted to figure out like, okay, well, I'm using this strategy, but why am I not like profitable? Why am I not consistently profitable over these amount of trades? And I was wondering why, and I learned that the one thing that they weren't covering is the mindset portion. They were always covering like how do you trade, like what is the charts and stuff, what is the strategy, but they never really got into the mindset portion. Because you got to remember, if people are trading with a couple $100 something like that, and that's all that they have, or they're still working job and stuff like that, they might not have that much money. So if they risk a certain amount, they might not be comfortable with that. So that means that they're going to be fearful, and if they're fearful, that means that they're not going to be executing their trades properly because of fear. So now they might have a great strategy, but their execution on that strategy is not going to be the same because they still have fear. They're still trading with emotions. They're still not fully prepared of what the market can do. So for them, they already have different streams of income. Like one of them, he doesn't care if he loses 1,000 or 2,000 a day. He doesn't care because he's like, I got money coming in from e-commerce. I got money coming in from real estate. I got money coming in from trucking. So even if he loses on options, he still got money coming in. So that means his fear is going away. That means he doesn't trade with emotions. That means he's basically just trading with his strategy. And he has a good strategy, but you still have to be emotionally prepared to actually trade. So that's actually why my course is a little bit better, because I actually break down the steps on, first off, how to think like when it comes to options, because you can't just think the norm like the way that you're used to thinking. You have to think in terms of understanding everything that's going on. You have to think third person when you trade. So I teach you how to think third person. I teach you the strategy that I use, which is literally break down step by step on how to do every single thing in the market. That way, it allows you to remove your emotions and be able to capitalize on the actual strategy and actually making money in the market. Because if you can remove fear, you'll be tremendously good in the market. Because I actually had one of my mentors, he lost $1 million in a day trading, million. And he wasn't like affected by it. He was like, okay, cool. I mean, this is what happened. This is why I lost it. And I'm like, bro, you just lost $1 million. Like, what is wrong? Like, what's wrong with you? And then I had to realize something. He was emotionally okay because he was already a millionaire. He was already a multi-millionaire. So he was already making money, but that was just a loss that he took. And he was like, yo, I mean, I'll bounce back from it. I can't make $1 million in a day without accepting the loss of $1 million in a day.
Mm.
So that's why I was like, oh, that's different. So then that's why I taught that principle in the market. So now when I make $1,000 in a day, I'm like, okay, I'm fine with making $1,000 in a day, but I also have to be comfortable losing it too. So again, if I put it, let's say I put 10,000 in a trade and I lose 10% of that, which is 1,000. I got to be comfortable with that, because at the end of the day, I know that in these next few trades, I can either make 200, 300, 400, $500, even $1,000 on the trade if I keep being consistent and I keep sticking to my strategy and I don't trade with emotions. So that's why it's so. That's why it's so. It's simple, but it's not easy. Like once you're actually willing to dedicate it to actually learning this stuff and actually accepting the risk and accepting losses and accepting your losses and building on your wins, you're going to be successful in the market. And I already have my friends, and they're literally teenagers and stuff like that, and they're learning that stuff because I had to paint that picture in their mind that they don't have anything to fear. Because I mean, if they lose that money, I'm like, okay, cool. Well, you can still get money from your parents. You can still you can still be at your house and like stuff like that. And you still got years ahead of you. And people just give the money sometimes just as gifts. So I'm like, you could just leverage that and have no fear. And now they don't have any fear. And now they're making like $100 a day or something like that, around that amount. And they're like 15, 60 years old. And they're still in school online. Like, but that's the type of thing that it's all an emotional thing. It's the main thing is an emotional thing, because if you can manage your emotional state when you trade, you can easily make 10,000 a day, 100,000 a day, a million a day, because at the end of the day, it's all percentages. Because if I make $100 a day and I'm using 10% rule, that means I used 1,000 to make 100. So if I use 10,000, I can make 1,000. If I use 100,000, I can make 10,000. If I use a million, I can make 100,000. It's just 10% though. It's still 10%. Like I still put that money in and made 10%. It just depends on how much I put in. So then again, that just goes back to the emotional part. Are you emotionally able to handle that? And that's what's going to dictate your success.
Have you always been emotionally able to handle that?
Heck no, I was look, I was terrible. And I feel like that's why I'm such a good teacher, because I know, like if I say certain things to a trader that's emotionally trading, they're like, yo, how does he know that? I just went through that yesterday. I'm like, because I went through that already. Like I lost 1,000 a day. I was like, oh my God, I just lost 1,000 a day. I was so upset. And then eventually I had to realize, okay, why? I had to ask why. So when I get into emotional, because I lost 7,000 a day like recently. And I was like, and I had to realize, I was like, okay, I lost 1,000 a day. That's cool. That the fact that I even had a 7,000 to lose, first off, was a blessing anyway. But the fact that I can also make that money back anyway. So that's why I was like, all right, let me just make some changes, make some adjustments, and I'll be fine. But that's not like a light switch you can just turn on and off though. You have to kind of build that stuff and train yourself to think like that. And now I've been doing that for this entire like year and a half, and now I'm able to get to this point. And even still, some people it takes 2 to 3 years. So literally, even the fact that I'm doing this now, and the fact that I have a process that can actually speed up your process and focusing on your emotions, is like something that most people don't even teach until they're 2, 3 years in. So again, that's why my course is most likely going to teach something that most other courses don't teach, because they don't touch on the emotional aspect. They're going to teach you their strategy. They're going to teach you how to enter trades. They're going to teach you how to set up your account, but they won't teach you how to actually deal with losses. And that's the key thing, because you can make 10,000 a day, but can you handle and stomach losing 10,000 a day? And if you can't, then you got to go back to the drawing board.
I love that so much, teaching how to think, um, because like you're truly the coach when you can teach me, like what you were saying, to ask questions, like asking questions. That's not just risk management. That's like conflict resolution in general in life. And so if you're coming and you're teaching me how to think about these trades, and I can control myself during money, and nobody wants to lose money, like you said.
Mm.
So I remember I called myself trading. I had $500 and I lost $500 like 3 times. So I was like, okay, let me just, because I don't know what I'm doing. But when I started, I had made like $300. So in my head, like we up, I'm finna,
Yeah.
But no, I didn't know any of the things you're talking about, which is why we have to get we need that like guidance and that leadership that not only has done it, but you also have kind of made that cheat code for people. But it's every aspect: thinking, doing the risk management, being able to make the calculations, like looking up the proper way to do things. No, when you're on YouTube, you're getting a bunch of information, but the information may not be in order. You may not need this part until you get way down here. Um, but you have this information, you don't have any structure with it. You don't know what kind of comes first or second. And then you jump out there and you feel like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But that may not be all the case, especially when things get more technical. So I really commend it, and I love that you are teaching your expertise, and then the fact that you learned in a year, as you said, a year and a half,
A year and not a year and a half, a year and 2 months. Is it 2 months?
and
A
you're already
year,
killing it.
yeah,
That's amazing. That just shows how serious you take your craft, which means that we have to learn more from you. We have to get you. Have you been doing? I think I've seen you've been doing speaking events.
Oh yeah, I've been doing a few speaking events. I'm starting to get into that more, and I'm actually about to start getting into schools now, and talking about to the kids about like actually how what the stock market is, how to trade and stuff like that, and also different entrepreneurial tactics they can take, and also teaching them how to leverage what their specialties are and what their gifts are, and how to leverage that to make money and how to turn that into a business. So I'm going to start doing that soon too, like in Atlanta, just going to these different schools and stuff like that too. But I know with COVID, it's a little bit difficult. But I'm trying to get a few speaking events, like to speak to teenagers and stuff like that and young adults. That's my job. That's my goal to do.
I love that. I think it's so needed. I'm trying to do similar things in DC. I'm coming down there too because, like you said, the mindset is different.
Yeah,
But I want to also do that here because um, people may not have the exposure. They don't even they just don't know you and know what you're doing, or they don't know that this is a thing that me too. I can do that. They might see it and think it's for them,
yeah.
and I want I I would love to connect with you on this on that path of like going to schools and starting up in events and whatnot, because I feel like that's how you get that exposure. Um, Having somebody tangible that you can see, that you can go and say, hey, I did this, I started this, or I was thinking about this, or I saw a YouTube video on this, and being able to be in a room with somebody who can actually tell you more about it. I think that that's so important, just because it evens the playing field. Like, okay, I can be in this game too. Like, I see him, I can be in the game. So I love it.
Thank you.
I love it so much.
But yeah,
Well, okay. So I have three questions for you. This is speed round, and I just want to respect your time.
yeah.
So the first question is, what is healing finances to you mean? What does healing finances to you mean?
Healing finances.
Mm-hmm.
Healing finances, like healing me or like
Healing. Okay, so I kind of did it out of order. So,
yeah.
what does healing to you mean?
Okay, so healing to me is being able to consciously being able to consciously understand what is going on with you, and being able to take the right corrective measures to actually work on working on figuring a way to help yourself get better. So whether that be like healing is different for most people. Like for me, healing is okay. Like for me, healing is just understanding what happened and then saying, okay, do I have to feel bad about this? Not really. Okay, cool. That's for me, because I usually just like because I'm so self aware, and I'm also aware of like whatever you allow yourself to feel and whatever you allow yourself to I guess like embody in terms of like what in terms of your emotions, stuff like that. You can control that because your mind is in control of all of that, but you still have to identify what that stuff is and identify where you are and where you want to be, and also what you have to do to get there. So that's healing to me. But healing could just be, whether it depends on the situation from each person, but it could be going to therapy. It could be, taking some time off to yourself. It could be, keep yourself in your room so that way you can relax and, get your mind right and stuff like that. Like there's different ways of healing, but that's what healing is to me.
I love it. Okay, now what is healing your finances?
Healing my finances, well, I feel like I'm already kind of scarred in my finances as much as it is. So I have to say, because okay, and when I say, okay, so I consider myself broke now. That's what I consider myself at, because for me, broke is 500,000 and less. That's broke to me. And then middle class is like 500,000 to 2 million, and then upper middle class is like 2 million to 5 million. That's how I do it. Like that's what one of my mentors told me. Like that's basically how it works in terms of like the hierarchy and like what you should be striving for. So in my mind, I'm like, yo, I'm not where I want to be, but at the same time, so I'm technically always healing. So healing finances would be, I guess, finances that would heal me, like what I heal, like what I'm dealing with. I mean, that's not probably that expensive for me, because I could probably just afford something that can heal me, like afford someone that can help me heal. So that probably be like maybe 5 figures probably, like to heal me. But I guess to have the lifestyle that I want, that might be 7 or 8. It just depends.
So how are you? Okay, so this is a side question, but
Yeah.
how are you? Um, how do you invest your money?
I just invest in different. I invest in mainly I invest in myself, like information, but now I'm about to start investing primarily into like tangible things like assets. So right now I mainly reinvest everything back into education myself, like literally educating myself. And that goes from either getting a mentorship on how to do a specific thing, a course on teaching me how to do a specific thing in that industry, or it might be going to a conference and networking with people so that way I make those connections and I meet new people and those people can help me do specific things. So that's pretty much my thing, like what I invest in now.
Mm. I think that that's important too because um, it's kind of like it can be a blind spot, I guess, where you're making money, but now I'm getting all this money in. What do I do with it? Especially if I'm young,
Yeah.
um, and if I'm making more than my parents, how do I, what,
What
what kind of rules do you have in place for your money to just make sure that you're putting it on those right things? And we're young. We want to have fun. We want to do things. What do you have any rules that make sure, or maybe um it doesn't have to be rules, but maybe like an account where this is your spending account and this is your investing account or your work account. How do you separate your money so that you can kind of live in the moment, live your life, but also you're thinking about your future and getting into that next tax bracket?
so I typically don't like. I'm weird. I don't go to parties. I don't go like out too much. And if I do go out, I try to figure out, all right, what can I get out of this financially, or what can I get out of this in a networking perspective. So if it's not
Mhm.
somewhere I can link up with like-minded people, that's not really something I want to do. Like I met up. Matter of fact, I met up with a few of my friends. They're like, they're a little younger than me. They're like 15, 16, 17. But one of them's on Nickelodeon now. Another one did interview with Shaq, and he has his own clothing brand. Another one like is growing and blowing up off of working out and stuff like that. Another one is huge into dancing and stuff like that. Like everybody that I hang out with is like killing it already. So I don't really hang out with. I don't really do like parties necessarily, or like have things that I spend like waste my money on for real. Like I quote unquote waste my money on like high ticket things like investments. So, but other than that, I mean, I usually like just buy things that can help me. Like I actually just spent money on a monitor, a new desk, and a new computer. But I mean, that stuff was an investment. So for a trading, that's so again, it's still not really personal to me. But I usually just put all of my money reinvested back into the business, and I might take like a few dollars, or maybe even like maybe max $100, $200 for myself, because for my bills and stuff like that. I mean, not bills, but like personal things that I want to do. Like if I want to
Mhm.
go out somewhere, okay, cool, I have this money set aside for that. But outside of that, I need to be working and reinvesting, because my whole thing is like I want to be like when everybody else is 21 having fun in the club, I want to own the club. So that's my whole thing. But in order for me to do that, I have to take these steps now, so that way I can enjoy my life once I'm a little bit older.
How did you know what it is you wanted to do? Did you set out goals, or is this recent? Have you always had this entrepreneurial mindset?
Oh no, like literally. So the reason I had the entrepreneur mind, where I got it from, was, so I used to be a very empathetic person. Like I still am now, but I was very like, I was always focusing on everybody else because I wanted to either be accepted, or I wanted to be liked, or I wanted to have, friends, stuff like that. So that was my thing when I was in high school. Because I didn't really have it when I was in, middle school and stuff like that, in elementary school, because I was very annoying. I was not that friendly with people, and I just wasn't always getting along with people. And once I realized it was me, now I realized, okay, it's my job to like basically be everybody's friend. I'd be cool with everybody, at least in some way, shape, or form. But so when I got to, so there was a situation that happened with this one person. That she was my best friend basically, and long story short, she basically cheated on her boyfriend with me and lied about it basically. So I asked her, I was like, hold up, what's going on? Because she tried to come on to me basically, and I was like, hold up, don't you have this person? She lied and said no. Something happened basically, and then she told her boyfriend, and then basically said that I took advantage of her basically, even though she came over my house and that whole thing happened. But I was like, so then I had to break down. So, and this is why I'm so like, the way I'm self-aware and I'm so analytical about how I trade and stuff like that, it's the same way I told him the story of like what happened. Like I was talking for 2 hours of like every single thing that happened, like every detail. And the point where the guy was like, hold up, she normally does some of those certain actions and some of those certain things with me. So then she was like, then the boyfriend ended up believing me, and she ended up, I guess, trying to attack. She basically tried to come to my house, attack me, and all this other stuff. And then that's when I basically was like, okay, I can be doing everything right, and some of the people that surround me could still do me wrong. So that's when I kind of pulled back, and I was numb to certain emotions and stuff like that, and I was kind of staying like to myself a lot. I wasn't playing the game. I wasn't hanging out with friends. I actually lost like most of my friends. I kind of cut everybody off so I could focus on me. And that's when I got into entrepreneurship, because I spent so much time devoted to myself that I had no reason but to be successful in some way, shape, or form. And that's why I was so good at options, and because I just spent all my time doing it. And now I've gotten to this point where I know it so well. Now I can just take breaks and stuff like that and I'll be fine. But I already know so much. And now there's so much stuff that I still can learn and grow from, but I know majority of everything that I do need to know in order to be successful with it. So, but that came from just dedicating that much time and to myself and not everybody else. And now that I'm in Atlanta, now it's like, all right, now I can start networking. Now I can start, because I actually have value. I actually have, a skill set that I can teach somebody and contribute. So that's kind of where that started from in terms of getting into entrepreneurship.
That is so good. So basically, essentially, that's like the story of betting on yourself. Why betting on yourself is so important. We, um, I feel like that correlates to my story as well. I had all these ideas. I've had that mindset for a while, but I wanted to push you to
Mm.
do something, or help them, or you got an idea. I can, like, just instead of focusing on myself and my craft. And this is what happens, guys, when you focus on yourself. So drown out the noise.
Focus on you, because at the end of the day, like, it's not, and I'm not saying like, yo, just be a jerk and just say, oh, screw everybody. But I mean, to a certain extent, you have to be selfish, because if you're not, then you're going to build up everybody else's kingdom without building up yours.
Yes.
You got to figure out like, all right, cool, I'll build my kingdom and I'll send troops to help them. Like, you kind of got to have that type of mindset. But you have to build now, because like, especially like when you're younger, you have to build, because at the end of the day, I want to be like, by the time I'm like 21, I'm already going to be financially free. I'm already going to have everything that I want paid for, and my parents' stuff paid for. So I don't really care about like what other person's doing, because my parents still got to pay bills. Like, I don't care if you making this much, or you're trying to learn how to do this. Okay, cool, but I still got to make sure I take care of my family. I still got to make sure I take care of me. Like, you have to put yourself first if you want to actually achieve those things. Like, I'm retiring my parents by the end of this year, and I already calculated how much it would be, and I'm like, okay, I can make that easy. So I'm already thinking in my head like, all right, how can I provide for people And it all comes back to what do I have to do for me, not what I have to do for everybody else. Even still, I still like my focus is still like it's really and the thing is, like when I have a community and stuff like that, because I'm actually going to everybody that gets my course also, you will be into my community where we basically do trading. We'll do live trading things, and we'll also do and I also give you guys plays and also charting and stuff like that, and my analysis of what I'm actually doing every single day when I'm trading. So if you are getting the course, you'll learn how to do it, and you'll also have my guidance on how to do it as well. But the people so the only people that I'm focused on is people that's willing to invest in themselves. If you're not willing to invest in yourself or willing to grow, then that's not going to be my focus. But if you're willing to invest in yourself, okay, I got you. Because at the end of the day, if we have the same mindset and I help you, eventually it's going to help me in some way, shape, or form. So if you're good at if you have a really fantastic clothing line and you're really good at marketing and you want to learn how to do options, I got you. I'm gonna walk you through it. I'm gonna teach you how to do it, cool, for free. None of that stuff. But you're gonna come back automatic. Everybody does it. They're gonna come back and like, oh, you want me to help you with a clothing brand? Sure. I mean, just that type of stuff is literally like just exchange of value, basically. Like that's my thing. Like just always exchanging value, also just giving back to people and helping people grow. Only people that I just have the most respect for and that I'll just help out regardless of whatever their situation is like people that's super young and they're like 13, 14, 15 years old, 16 years old. Only because they have so much more potential than I do. And I know that they can be successful and I know that they're great and I know that they're early too. And the world hasn't gotten them yet. So I can still, work with those people. But other than that, I still mainly just focus on me.
I love that so much. I was reading yesterday and I read a quote about leadership. So I want to know your opinion.
Mm.
Uh, when you are teaching and being a coach and being a leader, how do you feel about your students surpassing you?
Oh, if my students surpass me, I'm a great teacher. That's my point.
Yeah.
The whole point. Like for example, if I'm a parent and my son or daughter isn't better than me, I failed. I failed as a parent. I mean, I didn't do something right because everything needs to get better in some way, shape, or form. Everything has to grow. Everything has to develop. Everything has to get better. So actually, matter of fact, when one of my students actually, he made like $940 in a day in like about an hour or so, and I lost like 2,000 that day. I was happy that day. I was like, yo, I just lost 2,000, but he made 940 but the thinking that I helped him do that and now he can consistently do that. I'm like, yo, that's so crazy. Like to think about. So now my losses don't even matter anymore. If I lost 10,000 in a day and someone else made like even $100, I'm gonna be happy because that means that I actually did something right. Even if I'm doing something wrong for myself, I still did right by somebody else, and that just means so much more to me than any success that I can have.
I love it. Okay, tell the collective where they can find you. I think you already told you your link, the link in your bio. But just tell them your um, website and which is I love that name, Gen X, Gen Z.
Gen
Is it
Z,
Gen Z?
yeah,
Yeah, that's dope. Okay, you're on something. I like that. But tell everybody where they can find you again because I know we started talking again.
of course. You can find me at CEO Ashon on Instagram, CEOASHON, and I'm also on Twitter at CEO Ashon as well. Pretty much everywhere it's pretty much going to be CEO Ashon. But CEOASHON. Yes, I know it's spelled a little weird, but it's Ashon. So yeah, but I usually gotta say that because most people say Ashton or it might be Ashon and stuff like that. I understand though, but I made that. But yeah, you can find me there and genzenterprises.com. Trying to help 1,000 people make $1,000 this year. So $1,000 in a
Let's
day,
go.
by the way.
$1,000 in a day.
Yep, in a day. 1,000 people to make $1,000 in a day.
Let's go. We could do it. Let's grow. We could do it. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm thankful. I'm so happy that you came and visit us today. This was such a good talk, and I hope people got something from it. I know so many people that are like on the fence about trying to trade at any cost. And so I feel like you did a great job of kind of like diving in, dissecting it for a new mind who is looking for a new skill and wanting to change their life. So I'm so grateful. Do you have anything else to say to the collective before we get out of here?
Um, Bet on yourself before you bet on anybody else. I mean, just believe in yourself before you also believe in yourself, but also believe that God put you here for a reason. Like God has something for you in your life. And if that is to help other people, then do it. If it's to help yourself and it's to help your family, then do it. But whatever God called you to do, just do that and then do it to the best of your ability.
I love it. You guys heard it here first. Now, make sure you do some healing today. Peace
That.
and healing, y'all. We're out.
Peace out.